Welcome back to the Gavel Gab podcast. This is part 2 of starting a law firm in my 20s. I'm your host, Carlie Spencer, the prenup girl and founder of Strive Law Firm, all of which we're going to talk about as we dive into this episode. In part 1, I walked you through all of the pre-launch essentials and the things that I personally did: trust account, bookkeeping, branding, what your CRM and your case management system will look like, legal logistics. So if you missed that, go back and listen to episode 3 so that this episode will make sense. Today, we are fast forwarding to launch day and the first about 6 months or so, and the real lessons that I learned in those first few weeks, first few months, while independently running a law firm in my 20s. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about today before I dive in are setting up your office space, landing and onboarding the first new clients that truly came from thin air, theoretically. So if you missed this in the first episode or you didn't go back and watch episode 3 to learn about part 1 of starting a law firm, I talk about how as lawyers, we can take clients or we can request clients to come with us from the previous firm. It's actually ethically required when a lawyer leaves a firm to notify the client and give them the option to go with the attorney, stay at the current firm, or hire a completely new firm. Third, I'm going to talk about marketing, what I did, what worked, what didn't, and what I needed help with. And then fourth, systems that I incorporated in the beginning, and I'll give kind of teasers on the ones I'm still using and figure out, as we progress, how those systems kind of evolved as the business evolved, and then just personal curveballs and learning experiences and lessons. So let's talk first about office space. So any business, not just law firms, but law firms specifically and businesses, you've got to ask yourself, what do you need? Okay. So do you need a physical space or is virtual okay? So question number 1 is, do your clients come in? Do they visit you in person? And I guess after that, you've got to ask, is it necessary that they visit you in person? Can you decide, I'm going to have a virtual office and my clients can meet with me via phone or video, but I'm not going to meet with them in person? These, to me, are personal business owner decisions, okay? So all of that's going to be specific to what you need. Then I think that there's a second question. If you decide you're going to do a physical office space, ask yourself, do you need a private physical office space? Can that be in your home? Are you willing to let people come to your home? I think there's movies and TV shows where therapists sometimes work out of their home. So I guess theoretically, depending on the business, depending on your comfort level, you could do that. Do you need a private office space that you lease on a 1 to 3 year basis because it's a business? I don't know. You have to answer that. Or can you consider a co-working space? So that is what I did. That is what I currently have my office in, even about a year and a half later. So I'm going to talk you through some of the things that I thought about and how I decided on my space and how my mindset has shifted and evolved a year and a half in. So I knew that I was not a work from home kind of girly, and I did not want my business to be out of my home. It's just not conducive for me. I would go crazy. So I knew I needed to be around people. I'm an office girl. I'm a corporate girl through and through. I need my coffee. I need my little chitty chat by the water fountain. I need to walk through the hallways and be able to say good morning, good afternoon, how are you? I need to be able to pop into somebody's office and have a little chitty chat. Okay. I like to yap, obviously. This is the Gavel Gab podcast. We're yappers around here. Okay. So I knew I needed to find somewhere I could do that. But Carlie, you were starting off on your own as a solo. So then my only option was a co-working space. Okay. I also did not want to be locked in for an extended time period, which a lot of commercial leases will do that. I was hoping and planning on scaling and growing. And so I didn't want to get locked into a single person office space for 3 years. And then 6 months in or a year in, I'm trying to grow and expand. And then what do I do? So I wanted flexibility. So I looked at a variety of office spaces in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is where I'm located. So there's Regis, there's WeWork, There's several others that I think are more local to the area. I ended up at a place called The Commons, which is in it's previously the Wells Fargo building. It's one of the larger buildings downtown. It is 2 or 3 blocks from the courthouse, which my old office that I worked at was 2 or 3 blocks from the courthouse the other direction. And quite frankly, I loved the convenience. I go to court. Some lawyers don't go to court. Some even family lawyers, even in the same area, are more settlement attorneys. That's fine. But I'm a court girl. I have a calendar call, so I might not have a trial or hearing, but I mean, I'm in a calendar call a couple times a week. And even though you can attend those virtually, if you're, not planning to move forward with your case, I didn't want to do that. I just personally feel like the judge is seeing you there in person, like the good old days pre-COVID. It matters. And I'm also interacting with pro se parties. So they see me answer calendar call. And because so few attorneys are actually attending, just by getting up saying, Carlie Spencer, I'm here on behalf of the defendant. Today we're ready to move forward, or today we're seeking a continuance. Just having that confidence. I've had pro se parties come up to me and say, hey, I really want to hire a lawyer. Can I talk to you? And those have become clients. So I see no downside, especially if I'm a few blocks away. Now, if I was a 20-minute drive, 40 minutes of my day to not really do anything, that would be a waste. So it was really important to me to be downtown, be walking distance to the courthouse. So that limited my options. I also wanted something shiny and pretty, and I wanted my clients to be able to come in and have in-person meetings with me. These were all the things that were important. I also love a perk. I love free things. So as I was going to different co-working spaces, the Commons just really spoke to me. It's on the 3rd floor of a really nice, prestigious building in downtown Raleigh. It's several blocks from the courthouse. They have free coffee every day. They also do free breakfast every morning. Yes, you heard me correctly. They also do an afternoon snack every day. And on Thursdays, they do a happy hour. So it's very community-based. There are multiple common areas. So sometimes I just need to be around people. So instead of paying for coffee and going to a coffee shop and getting that feel, I can do that in my own space. I also have my own private office. So I have beautiful glass walls, beautiful wallpaper, my diploma's on the wall. So it is a lovely space. So I rented a solo office. And another big point when I was talking about not getting locked into a long-term lease, these are all things you have to consider. So I spoke to the person that was handling that at the time. They're no longer at the Commons. They've moved on to other things. But this person became my good friend over the time there, which was the whole point of being in a space around other people. So I asked him point blank. I said, I'm doing a year lease because you get a discount if you do that. I said, I want to move into a bigger office and it's available. What are the repercussions? He said, absolutely none. We will upgrade you. You don't have to break the lease. We're not going to charge you anything. We're always happy to take more money from you. So that was the reassurance I needed that this was a good spot for me. It also, when you ask the question, I said this at the beginning, what do you need? Other things you need to think about when office space is considered is, do you need a large corporate size printer, copier, scanner? Those are really expensive to buy. A lot of law firms that are on the small to medium size, from my understanding, rent them, but still that's a cost. My office space has 2. Now, sometimes they are slow as Christmas, but for the most part, I'm able to do what I need to do for work. Now, I have learned if I have a case and I'm going to be printing 4 binders for my trial and there's going to be a couple hundred pages in there, I'm going to do that a couple days early. Because some days the printers are just a little bit, they got some personality and they're a little feisty. So I'm not going to do it at the last minute, but I can get it done and I know how to work around these issues. There's also Wi-Fi, so I don't have to pay for Wi-Fi. There's also decent office supplies around the building. So sticky notes, little notepads, paper clips, binder clips, staplers, tape. Now, I have some of these basics in my own office in case they're out, but it's nice that I don't have to do all of that and have that on hand at all times and that extra cost. So co-working space worked out beautifully for me. In fact, not to fast forward too much because we have other parts and other episodes coming, but I have already at this point, a little less than a year and a half in, I have 2 offices in the space. So I have my private office that I originally started with, and right next door, I've rented and leased the office next door to me for my associate that's starting in a few weeks. Again, not to get too ahead of things, we will get through it as the series progresses, but little teasers to some things to come. But I have loved the space. And honestly, I want to say this before I move on to the next section is I was worried. So I can't be the only one that thinks this way. So I want to validate the feeling. I was worried that as clients came in, oh, I guess I forgot to say this. There's also conference rooms. There are at least 8 conference rooms that you can rent. You get a certain number of hours a month, and then you have to pay hourly fees after that. So I can rent conference rooms. There's small, intimate ones, and there's 2 very large ones that seat 10 to 12 people. It's beautiful. There's lots of glass. There's lots of marble here. It's a very stunning space. But I worried that a co-working space would not look that professional and that clients would come in, lay people would come in, and they'd be like, oh, she can't get her own office space. So I was a little insecure about it, and I just decided to suck it up and say, I don't care. And I have been very pleasantly surprised. While I do a lot of phone calls and a lot of things virtually, I do have clients come in and they are always impressed. I'm like, can I get you water, coffee, soda? Can I take you, I'm going to take you to the conference room. There's an iPad at the front where they can sign in and it notifies me they're there. So I send my paralegal to go get them and bring them in. So it's still very professional. Even the co-working, like I'm not sitting in a common space when I have meetings with clients, but they get to see all that. And from all the feedback I've gotten, people really love this space. They love the space. They're impressed with it. And so all of my insecurities just went, don't care. But I completely understand if you're in that position. But just know, as long as you show the space with confidence, I walk in and I'm like, oh yeah, I love it here. Let me walk you out. It can be a little confusing. My office is in the back corner. We don't go to my office. We don't take meetings in there. I don't even show it to them because usually it's actually kind of messy. But I always reference, like, I have a private office. Sometimes people ask me questions about it and the space and how to rent it. And so it's been a dream. And the cost and the price point has been so much better than being stuck in a long-term commercial lease. So 10 out of 10 recommend. Okay, so first, clients. We're gonna switch gears. I mentioned earlier that you get to bring clients with you. So I had a handful of clients that I took with me that I want to rephrase. Not that I took with me, that were given the opportunity to come with me, stay or go to another firm, and that chose to come with me. So I took a handful of those, and I talk about this in episode 3, part 1 of this series, that I decided on my minimal viable clients, and that was all that I took. I didn't want to be overwhelmed because I knew there would be so many business things that would take my time. And we're going to get to those in just a second. Don't you worry, because I was right. So I really wasn't super focused on getting new clients. I was trying to post on social media. I mentioned before in the other episode that I had secured social media handles. So I had Strive Law Firm, and I created a YouTube channel and different things like that. So I was trying to put content out there, also utilizing my personal channels. I'm fortunate that I have a personal TikTok that has about 50,000 followers, and my personal Instagram account also has, I think at the time, around 8 or 9,000. So I had a decent following and tried to utilize those sources to cross promote from the law firm. Had a great website that I set up. I use Show It and highly recommend. And so what I was doing to bring in clients was just being me and hoping on referrals. And so I actually got 2 clients within, I think, the first month and a half, 2 new clients. And where they came from was referrals from previous clients that were thrilled with my work and happy with me as a representative, both from being a fierce advocate in court, but also being really kind and compassionate to my clients. I think a lot of attorneys that are really aggressive and successful in court sometimes struggle with that bedside manner. It's kind of like surgeons. Like, they might be really good at their job as far as like cutting you open and getting all that right, but they're not always so good at the customer service and personal relations side of things. So I think a lot of attorneys that are really courtroom heavy have that issue. Just something I see, not calling anyone out, not accusing anyone of anything. So, oh my gosh, please don't come for me for saying that. Just my opinion. And I think a lot of the attorneys that have really good bedside manner, that are really kind and compassionate and empathetic with their clients, are more settlement attorneys and spend their time doing more behind the scenes and paperwork stuff and mediations rather than going to court and litigating. I am so fortunate that I try, I think I'm good at both, but I put a lot of effort into it. So I don't want to act like I'm just lucky. I have worked really, really hard over the years to become a litigator that is, a force to be reckoned with in court, and also be really kind and compassionate and interpersonal with my clients. So that was great. And I thought, wow, this is so easy. I was totally naive and dumb. And I don't know if arrogance really it. I just was like, oh, this was easier than I thought. I was really, really pleased. And what I didn't realize at the time, and we'll talk about this throughout the series, it doesn't really happen till about the 6-month mark, but it stalled because I didn't realize that I had a problem at this point. My cases that came with me from my old firm were moving forward, great, but some of those were coming to a conclusion in those first few months. And then I got those 2 new clients. And again, I was still really wanting to operate on a lower client base as I worked on building the business. But I didn't realize that I needed to be bringing in more clients at a more consistent pace than I was. So that becomes an issue. But I did land the first 2 kind of organically. Then I guess maybe deep down, I realized I needed some help with marketing. So this is kind of the segue to the marketing moves that I did and what I sort of started implementing in the beginning. So I mentioned that I was posting on social media. So I was trying to be consistent with that. And I was really struggling. So you've got to ask yourself, like, what do you need in terms of marketing? How do you want to reach your audience? Who is your audience? All of those things. We've heard it before. But what I was struggling with is my website. I felt really great about it. And I made it myself, and I knew it looked good. It looked professional. It had direct links to book with me. It had information on pricing, which is not common for attorneys to include, but I wanted to be forthcoming. I wanted people to have access to everything they needed to know. And then on the flip side, for that specifically, I was already targeting my correct audience. I was not doing Google ads because I knew I needed to pay buku money to even come close to competing with other larger family law firms in the area. So I was just trying to do it organically. I also needed help with social media. I mentioned I was doing it, and I am fortunate that I had experience in this area from my time being a Miss America title holder, having a title holder Instagram page, trying to promote and connect and build community and things like that. But I was really struggling with consistency. So I needed some accountability there. And I also knew, again, this is a little forward looking. We're going to talk about this in part 3 of this series. But I knew that I needed to pivot my business and branding in a way. That actually is the birth of the Prenup Girl, but we will talk about that in future episodes. But for today, what I did was I hired a marketing PR agency, which really I was hiring a direct consultant. So I started meeting with her once a week. She started giving me milestones and parameters for how many because I didn't want to hire a social media manager, knowing this was something I could do. And I wasn't overwhelmed with client work to where I couldn't do it. I just was struggling with consistency because, as business owners know, and this is how I kind of wrap this episode later, is there is always something you can do. There's always something you could be doing. There's a million things. It's different than when you're just an employee and you have an 8 to 5, or you even have a task list. Like, the task list is never ending. There's always something you can improve and make better. So, that's the ultimate struggle of being a business owner. So she gave me kind of KPIs and how many weekly posts I needed to be doing, what type of posts. We started talking about this brand pivot that we wanted to do, and we ended up launching that a little bit after the 6-month mark, or maybe right around there. And that was really helpful. So my point in this is, ask yourself what it is you want. I wanted to grow on social media because I think these generations, and honestly, people in their 20s and 30s are getting divorced at much higher rates. I'm a family lawyer. I do divorces. I want to reach them there because I know even myself, I don't just Google something. I Google it and then I look up the responses on Instagram or on TikTok and I try to get other feedback. And so I wanted to have a presence online that was appealing, that showed the kind of person they'd be working with if they hired me. And so that was important to me, and I needed help with that to do it effectively, because even if I was doing it all, it's a lot of time sometimes to do it wrong. So I wanted to make sure my efforts were actually giving me a return on investment, and I was putting out the right type of content. And we actually ended up doing a major video shoot and added a ton of video content to my website that really took it to the next level. So if you check out my website, this was all from, which actually it's funny. If you're watching on YouTube, I have dark hair now. I'm very blonde in all the video footage, and I crack up because sometimes clients do a little bit of a jump scare when they see me because I look the same but completely different hair color than in all of that footage. So it's on the list to update at some point, but it was such a fun day. We talked about my core values, why I do this, things like that, and then just aesthetically put videos out there on the website to make it a lot more interactive. So the point, find where you're weak, find the areas you want to improve on, and hire great people and hire them as an extension of your team. Don't hire people you don't like. You have to work with them and you have to pay them. And yes, you're paying them. But if you're just thinking of like, you work for me because I pay you, you're not going to have as rich of an experience and a relationship as you can. My team that I work with, I pay them. We have an amazing relationship, and they open up opportunities to me outside of what I pay them for all the time. So highly recommend, and definitely for almost every single business, I'm not sure there's an exception to this, you need help with your marketing. You just do. I know you do, because I know what I'm doing to an extent and I'm good at it, but I still needed help. And it's not always in the actual creation. Sometimes it's the consistency, sometimes it's the accountability. So highly recommend. I was originally going to use the last bit of our time today on this episode to talk about the systems that I use and have incorporated into my law firm, like the actual software and technology and websites and tools and applications. But I think that would be a good episode all on its own, because I have so much to say. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to drop that as an episode all on its own. And I'm going to talk about not just the stuff that I used in the beginning, but the things that I've used from beginning to current day. So it's going to be less chronological than part 1 and part 2 and part 3 will be. But I think that that's an episode that's going to have so much of a actual takeaway that you can go and try these things yourself, and you can hear straight from somebody that's used them what they like and don't like, the pros and cons, what they would use again and would not use again, because that was a huge part of the first year and a half, and I'm still doing it. I'm still tweaking and testing and trying to make sure I'm using the best things possible, and that my money that I'm spending on these resources is giving me a return on investment of my time. So I'm going to do a whole episode on that. For now, I want to wrap up and thank you for watching the Gavel Gab podcast and listening to the Gavel Gab podcast. This is part 2 of starting a law firm in my 20s, and I can't wait to continue this series. You guys have given me such great feedback, so thank you. Please reach out, please message, please email, please comment on the Instagram post, follow on YouTube, and I will try to respond and get you answers or the resources you're requesting. I've got some requests for the top 100 list. So getting that together to start sending out, and I'm happy to provide any resource that I have access to that you guys are interested in. So until next time, keep yapping and toodaloo.